Corey LaJoie blames Ross Chastain for the finish of the Daytona 500, and Ray Evernham explains why he split from the Superstar Racing experience. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. This may not be the smartest way to start this episode, but I'm going to shout out some other NASCAR podcasts. I listen to a bunch of different NASCAR podcasts. I'm sure many of you do the same. Earlier this week, I was listening to Stacking Pennies with Corey LaJoie. And at the beginning of this episode, he gave us his perspective of that final big crash that ended the Daytona 500.
He said that I wrecked him. You can clearly see the Melon Man hung a left, run it back. There it is. I don't know what to do for you there. It's the last lap. You're coming to the white. Now I understand. I understand that in the moment, it's just hectic and you feel like you're getting pushed too hard and this and that, and you probably haven't even seen the tape. But clearly, his race was ended and his finish was impeded by the one trying to make the bold move down to the bottom to go into 24. And it didn't work out for either of them.
One race into the season and we're already bringing back the hashtag blame Ross trend. I don't really agree with Corey LaJoie's perspective, although I'll give him this. That onboard view he showed there does make it look like Chastain just comes flying down 3 lanes, sideswiping Austin Cindric. That replay does make Ross Chastain look bad, but if we look at the wider view that we've analyzed already this week on this show, you can see that the 2 car was already squirrely, kind of shot up the track at the same time the 1 car came down. There wasn't a ton of room for Ross Chastain to make that bold 3-wide move, but there was enough, in my opinion. The reason that hole closed so quickly, though, is because LaJoie and Cindric made contact and the 2 car got sideways going into the tri-oval. So you can put some of the blame on Ross Chastain for being aggressive. You can also put some of the blame on Austin Cindric for maybe lazily trying to block Corey LaJoie. But I still think a large chunk of the blame should be put on Corey LaJoie. By his own admission, he sort of lazily went for a hole on that inside lane, never fully committed, kind of just hung there on Cindric's left rear, and of course contact crashing ensued. It's not all on Corey LaJoie, but it's certainly not all on Ross Chastain either. Obviously, that's just my perspective. The reason I bring this up is because I fully expect Corey LaJoie and Austin Cindric to race around each other a ton this season. And Corey LaJoie has already said they are not friends. I wonder if Austin Cindric agrees with Corey LaJoie putting all the blame on Ross Chastain, or if Cindric is going to hear this clip and kind of roll his eyes and say, all right, way to deflect, buddy. Bad blood between 2 young drivers early in the season, I'm just saying, could be the start of a major storyline this season. 2 drivers that I think expect to improve greatly this season on the racetrack. Both, I think, expect to be in contention for one of those 16 playoff spots. I fully expect LaJoie with the newly revamped Spire and Cindric, his 3rd year with Team Penske. I expect them to be door-to-door in that 15th to 20th place range for much of the season. This could be an interesting rivalry to keep an eye on. But that was Stacking Pennies. I'll put a link down in the description below to the full episode. I encourage you to go check it out. I caught up on Door Bumper Clear this week, and at the very beginning of that podcast, spotter Brett Griffin dropped a hint that he will be spotting 7 races for Richard Childress Racing for a driver that can't yet be announced. He mentions the Chicago street race specifically. I imagine this is Brody Kostecki coming over from Australia to continue his NASCAR journey. Obviously, that's not confirmed, but it would make the most sense now. I know there's been some weird things going on the supercar side of things. Kostecki out of his seat right before the season started. I don't know if that has any effect on his relationship with Richard Childress Racing, but Kostecki came over to the States last year and tried NASCAR out. I would not be surprised if he is the driver for these 7 races, especially considering one of the dates is the Chicago street race. We'll have to wait for an official announcement. Another young driver getting a big-time Cup Series opportunity is Derek Kraus. This week, Kaulig Racing announced that the 22-year-old Wisconsin driver will make 6 Cup Series starts behind the wheel of the number 16, beginning at Las Vegas in a couple weeks. He'll also do both Phoenix races, Kansas in May, Darlington in May, and Gateway, St. Louis in June. Very exciting moves for the young Derek Kraus. Derek Kraus won a good handful of K&N East, K&N West races a few years ago, but he's been fairly quiet since 2019. I went back and looked. He did make 8 Xfinity Series starts for Kaulig Racing last year, part-time schedule, finished inside the top 10 3 times. So clearly there's talent there, but I feel like 4 or 5 years ago, I would have considered him a top 5 draft pick, so to speak. Now he's like a mid-first rounder, in my opinion. He likely comes with some sponsorship attached. I assume that's why Kaulig is giving him this opportunity. But there is talent there. Hopefully he adjusts to the next-gen car well. I'll be rooting for him. Triple header at Atlanta this weekend. Gosh, back-to-back super speedways to begin the NASCAR season. Team owners, hold on to your wallets. This morning I was perusing social media, stumbled across a piece from my friends at the Daily Downforce explaining these weird 10-minute practice sessions this weekend that I didn't even know were happening. Oh, but they're not actually practice sessions. They are pit entry practice sessions. Atlanta Motor Speedway's pit road is so sketchy, with apparently 2 different pit road speeds, that NASCAR wanted every driver to get a chance to practice entering pit road under green. That's good. That's great. Actually, a great decision by NASCAR to give these drivers that experience, albeit after qualifying. See, on one hand, this is a good thing, but on the other hand, this only highlights the absurdity of not having any real practice sessions before qualifying or the race. We all saw how much equipment the Truck Series tore up at Daytona Friday night, right? And that was with some practice. We saw the equipment the Xfinity and Cup Series drivers tore up too. Atlanta is arguably the sketchiest track on the schedule. You're going to send 18, 19, 20-year-olds out there in a pack with no prior experience? The first thing Shane Van Gisbergen said this week when asked about Atlanta was, "Man, I wish we got practice." Cost cutting be damned. There should be at least a 30 to 60 minute practice session for all 3 series before qualifying. If teams are that worried about money, they can sit it out. I've been on this since at least 2022, probably at least 2021. You know, the COVID year was one thing. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I get it. But we should be past that at this point. There is no reason for there not to be at least one legitimate practice session for every series, every single weekend, especially at a still new, unique, sketchy racetrack like Atlanta Motor Speedway. It's honestly ridiculous. And especially for the lower NASCAR series, I do believe the lack of practice is beginning to hurt the on-track product. That's my take. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. One final story, one final podcast I listened to this week was the Dale Jr. Download. Special guest this week was NASCAR Hall of Famer Ray Evernham. They covered a wide variety of topics, shared some really interesting stories. But one particular topic that I'd like to zero in on is the Superstar Racing experience. 3-4 years ago, the SRX burst onto the scene, a brand new racing series helmed by Ray Evernham, featuring new, unique race cars, recently retired superstar drivers going up against some young guns and local short track heroes, bringing together drivers from a variety of disciplines, putting them on full display at American short tracks. It was a great idea and was clearly inspired by IROC, the International Race of Champions, which disappeared in the mid-2000s. Ray Evernham had total creative control that first year of the SRX. Not only did he design the cars, he also determined the race format, he got the driver lineup squared away. Ray Evernham's fingerprints were all over the SRX that first year. We all know about his love for IROC. Recently, he bought the IROC name and is planning on bringing that series back in some capacity. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But in this podcast appearance, Ray Evernham admits that he wanted the SRX to be like IROC.
Well, I designed that series. I wanted it to be a mini IROC for drivers that guys like you and Jeff and Tony, guys that are retiring from the sport younger and younger, but didn't really want to race, but wouldn't mind doing something like that. It was safer and have a little bit of fun, and made it, a special, a motorsports entertainment made for TV type series.
After that first year, Ray Evernham mysteriously kind of disappeared. He split from the rest of the SRX team relatively quietly. Evernham said on the Dale Jr. Download that after that first year, he and the other SRX partners disagreed on the path that the SRX should then take.
It did bother me to see some of the changes that were made and some of the things that it was becoming that we had never intended it to do. And I watched some of the turns that they made, and I thought to myself, it's just not going to make it. And unfortunately, they didn't.
Ray Evernham didn't go into too many specifics, though he did mention the SRX bringing in more active, especially Cup Series drivers. Eventually, the whole local hero shtick disappeared. Just a few months ago, the SRX announced that there will not be a 2024 season, so the future of this series looks kind of bleak. Disappointing, but it's clear Ray Evernham has big plans going forward. Like I mentioned, he has purchased the rights to the IROC name and branding. Once again, he reiterated on Dale Jr.'s podcast that the current plan is to bring together as many historical IROC cars and figures, put them on full display, host some sort of event later this fall, and maybe someday, in the not-so-distant future, Evernham hopes to bring back some sort of IROC on-track competition, which would be awesome. Again, as someone who kind of missed the boat with IROC, it was kind of before my time. It ended only a couple years after I really started getting into NASCAR. I bought into the SRX, especially that first year. Really, the first 2 years, I thought it was incredible. I'm sad the SRX is gone, but if IROC is able to come back in some serious capacity, I'm all for it. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below. We highlighted a few different podcasts: Stacking Pennies, Door Bumper Clear, Dale Jr. Download. Did you listen to any of those episodes? I encourage you to do so. What do you think of Ray Evernham's comments, some of the stories he shared? Let me know down in the comments below. That's going to do it. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and you love all things NASCAR. And thank you, as always, to my very, very supportive Patreon supporters. I will see you again very, very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your week, folks.